Oak Haven High, Eli Mercer was a ghost long before he ever wore a mask. He was a master of the periphery, a boy who compressed himself into the shadows to avoid the gravitational pull of Starin, the school's apex predator. To Starin, Eli wasn't a person. He was a target, a convenient outlet for a cruelty that felt as natural as breathing. Eli occupied the very bottom of the social ladder, and every rung felt like it was made of jagged glass. The breaking point arrived in the cafeteria, a roar of 1,000 voices that suddenly went silent. Starin didn't just trip Eli, he staged a theatrical humiliation, sending Eli's lunch and dignity sprawling across the floor, while a dozen smartphones captured the spectacle for the digital ether. As the laughter rippled outward like a shockwave, Eli stared at his shaking hands. The weight of being nobody had become an anchor, dragging him into the depths. In that moment of absolute exposure, a cold, hard spark ignited in his chest. When the city retreated into sleep, Eli found his forge. He sought refuge in the Iron Graveyard, a derelict shipyard on the edge of the docks where the air tasted of salt and rust. Under the strobe-like flicker of a dying streetlight, he gripped a cold iron crane hook. His muscles burned with a fire that felt like it was cauterizing his old self, and his palms bled into the grime. He wasn't just exercising, he was declaring a silent war on his own fragility. Months dissolved into a relentless cycle of grit and isolation. Eli sprinted through the biting midnight rain until his lungs felt like they were filled with crushed glass. He pushed against the unyielding earth until it felt like the world itself was pushing back. His physical transformation was a slow, agonizing evolution, but his mental resilience became like tempered steel. He stopped glancing at the floor when he walked. He learned that pain was merely data to be processed, and fear was just a phantom. His first trial occurred in a lightless alleyway behind a convenience store. He found Vax, a local enforcer, cornering a terrified woman. Eli's body moved before his mind could hesitate, striking with a fluidity he hadn't known he possessed. He stepped out of the gloom and intercepted Vax's heavy fist mid-swing. The sheer power in Eli's grip stunned the older man. Vax wrenched himself free and fled into the darkness, leaving the woman staring at her silent savior. Eli knew he couldn't protect the city as the boy the world expected to break. He crafted a persona that embodied the invisibility that once haunted him, the Ghost Guardian. He chose a heavy black hoodie and matching tactical pants, paired with a dark, expressionless mask. To complete the look, he integrated glowing white lining that traced the seams of his suit, creating a stark, electronic silhouette against the night. Behind the mask, the crushing weight of being nobody vanished. But the suit created a new kind of wall. At home, Eli sat across from his mother, Elena, feeling the tectonic plates of his life shifting. She spoke about the ghost she had seen on the evening news, her voice a fragile mix of wonder and terror, never suspecting that the boy eating his dinner in silence was the legend. He burned to tell her, to share the weight of his secret, but the silence was his only true shield. Eli Mercer was more alone than he had ever been. The criminal underworld didn't appreciate a ghost interfering with their business. Vax and his crew orchestrated a trap in a hollowed-out warehouse, circling Eli with heavy chains and malice. For a heartbeat, the old Eli, the boy who wanted to disappear, trembled. Vax lunged with a rusted pipe, but Eli realized that raw strength was a blunt instrument. He used the darkness and his glowing silhouette to distract them, dismantling the group with calculated, strategic strikes. Eli began to treat his mission like a grand master's chess game. He spent his daylight hours studying structural blueprints and monitoring police frequencies, mapping the city's pulse. He became a tactician of the streets, learning how to turn an opponent's momentum into their own downfall. His bedroom became a war room of maps and logic. He understood that the most pivotal battles were won in the quiet moments of preparation, long before the first blow was ever landed. The climax erupted at a crumbling high-rise, engulfed in a structural fire. Eli was hauling a trapped tenant through a corridor of flame when a support beam buckled. He threw himself over the civilian, shielding them from the collapse, but a jagged piece of steel caught the side of his head. As he stumbled out into the street, his mask shattered and fell away. Among the stunned crowd stood Starin, his jaw dropping in disbelief. The ghost guardian was just the quiet kid from the back of the room. The days that followed were a chaotic storm of flashing bulbs and prying questions. The world was obsessed with the boy behind the glow. Reporters like Callus hovered outside the school gates, demanding to know how a nobody could possess such strength. The pressure was suffocating. The weight was no longer from being ignored, but from the relentless gaze of 1,000 eyes. Starin wouldn't even lift his head when Eli passed. His former power evaporated. Standing on the school stage a week later, Eli didn't wear a mask. He stood at the podium, looking out at the student body with a steady, unyielding gaze. "Strength isn't a gift you're born with," he said, his voice echoing through the silent hall. "It's a choice you make in the dark." He told them that the ghost was a symbol, but the person was what mattered. He had finally learned to carry the weight, not by hiding from the world, but by owning his place within it.